Welcome to Crime Canvas. I'm your narrator, and today we're exploring a case that shook the expatriate community in Abu Dhabi to its core. This is a story about control, isolation, and the devastating consequences when love becomes a weapon. If you find value in these deeply researched cases, please subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing you thoughtfully crafted stories that matter. On March 15, 2016, in the underground parking garage of Marina Heights in Abu Dhabi, security cameras captured the final moments of a man's life. But what those cameras couldn't reveal was the suffocating marriage, the forbidden romance, and the calculated revenge that led to this moment. This is the story of Mira Desai, a young woman whose search for human connection would end in unimaginable tragedy. July 2011. 20-year-old Mira Desai stepped off an Emirates flight into the overwhelming heat of Abu Dhabi. Beside her walked her new husband, Kamal, a man she'd met only twice before their wedding. The gleaming airport felt impossibly large, nothing like the modest streets of Lucknow where she'd grown up. The marriage had happened with shocking speed. 1 month, Mira was studying English literature and dreaming of becoming a teacher. The next, she was signing documents she barely understood and boarding a plane to a country she'd only seen in films. Her father, a schoolteacher whose modest income couldn't cover both her education and her brother's medical expenses, saw the marriage proposal as a blessing. When the matchmaker mentioned an established businessman earning excellent money in the UAE, her parents believed it was destiny. For Mira, it felt like the end of everything she'd hoped for. But at 20, with family debts mounting and cultural expectations weighing heavily, what real choice did she have? Kamal was 45, precise, and had rigid expectations about how his household should function. His apartment on the 28th floor overlooked the shimmering Persian Gulf. European furniture, premium appliances, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views most people only saw in magazines. For Mira, it resembled a beautiful cage. During her first week, Kamal established the boundaries. "You shouldn't go out alone," he explained, his voice calm but absolute. "Abu Dhabi is different from India. Women can face difficulties if they're not careful. I'll accompany you for shopping on weekends." Within 2 months, Mira understood the unspoken rules of her existence. Wake at 5:30 each morning to prepare Kamal's breakfast exactly to his specifications. 2 eggs, toast cut diagonally, tea with precisely 1 sugar cube. Have dinner ready by 6:30 when he returned from his real estate consulting firm. Call her family once weekly for exactly 10 minutes, always with Kamal nearby. Watch television while he worked on his computer. Sleep when he decided it was time. The loneliness was suffocating. Their building housed dozens of expatriate families, yet Kamal discouraged any friendships. "These women talk too much," he would say. "Better to maintain our privacy." The only person Mira spoke with regularly was Elena, a Ukrainian housekeeper who came twice weekly. From Elena, Mira learned basic Arabic and heard whispered stories about other wives who seemed equally trapped. In Abu Dhabi's Indian community, Kamal had an impeccable reputation. Punctual, financially responsible, devoted to traditional values. At social gatherings, he would rest his hand possessively on Mira's back while discussing business ventures and Bollywood releases. To everyone watching, they appeared perfect. The accomplished husband and his lovely, dutiful wife. Behind their apartment door, a different reality existed. Kamal was methodical, controlling, viewing their marriage as a business arrangement with expected returns. He criticized Mira's cooking when the spices weren't perfectly balanced, her appearance when she didn't meet his standards, her thoughts whenever she dared express opinions that differed from his. "I brought you from a small city to live in luxury," he would remind her whenever she seemed less than grateful. Other women would be thankful for this opportunity. The cruelest part wasn't the criticism or isolation. It was the complete absence of warmth. Kamal treated her like an efficient household manager rather than a partner. Their physical relationship was mechanical, scheduled, completely devoid of emotional connection. He never asked about her feelings, her aspirations, what she missed about home. She existed to maintain his domestic comfort and eventually provide children to continue his family legacy. By 2014, 3 years into their marriage, Mira found small acts of quiet resistance. She secretly downloaded books on her phone, wrote poetry in Hindi that she hid in a journal, and sometimes stood on the balcony for hours watching boats cross the water, imagining herself aboard one of them. She had no idea that her life was about to change completely. That hope would arrive in an unexpected form. That her desperate reach for happiness would ultimately destroy 3 lives and lead her into an Abu Dhabi courtroom facing criminal charges. The transformation began not with violence, but with something Mira hadn't experienced in years. Simple human kindness. June 2014. Rahul Khanna arrived in Abu Dhabi like oxygen entering an airless room. At 33 years old, he moved with natural confidence that contrasted sharply with Kamal's rigid manner. Recently divorced and starting fresh as a marketing director with an international company, Rahul possessed a warmth that put people instantly at ease. When Kamal announced he was inviting his childhood friend for dinner, Mira spent the entire day anxiously preparing, terrified of embarrassing her husband. The evening Rahul first entered their apartment, everything shifted. While Kamal performed his usual role as the successful host, displaying his expensive possessions and impressive views, Rahul's attention kept returning to Mira. As she served the elaborate meal she'd spent hours creating, he became the first person in 3 years to look directly at her and say, "This smells amazing. You must have worked incredibly hard." "She's just a housewife," Kamal interrupted dismissively. What interest could she possibly have beyond cooking and cleaning? Rahul ignored his friend's tone and turned back to Mira. "What did you study before marriage? You seem far too intelligent to be just anything." The simple question nearly brought tears to her eyes. No one had asked about her education, her dreams, or her opinions in years. Throughout dinner, Rahul treated her like a person rather than invisible help. He asked about her family in Lucknow, genuinely complimented her cooking abilities, and even helped clear dishes despite Kamal's protests. When he left that evening, he did something unprecedented. He brought his hands together in a respectful namaste specifically toward Mira and said, "Thank you for the wonderful evening. I hope we can become friends." The friendship developed gradually over the following months. Rahul became a regular weekend visitor, always bringing thoughtful gifts. Books of poetry, interesting magazines, sometimes flowers that Kamal would eye with suspicion. Unlike Kamal's associates who barely acknowledged her presence, Rahul would spend time conversing with Mira about everything from cinema to world events. He shared captivating stories about his travels across Europe and Asia, painting vivid pictures of places she could only dream of seeing. For the first time since arriving in Abu Dhabi, Mira found herself anticipating something. She would spend the week planning conversations, thinking of questions about his work or experiences. When Rahul listened to her opinions about books or films, his attention was complete and genuine. He never made her feel foolish or naive the way Kamal constantly did. Everything changed when Kamal's business trips became more frequent. Kamal's consulting work required regular visits to Bangalore and Mumbai, usually lasting 4 to 5 days. During these trips, he would leave detailed instructions for Mira's daily routine. But Rahul began calling to check on her well-being. "Just making sure you're all right while Kamal's away," he would say. Their conversations gradually extended from polite check-ins to hour-long discussions about everything and nothing. Rahul shared stories about his painful divorce, his loneliness in a new city, his challenges with starting over at 33. In return, Mira found herself expressing feelings she'd never spoken aloud. Her homesickness, her isolation, the slow death of all her dreams. "You know," Rahul said during one late-night phone call in November 2014, "you could take online courses. Literature, teaching, certification, whatever interests you. Just because you're married doesn't mean your growth as a person stops." It was the first time anyone had suggested she still had potential, that her life wasn't finished at 23. The breaking point came in December 2014 when Kamal left for a 5-day business trip to India. Rahul appeared at her door that first evening with groceries and genuine concern on his face. Kamal had been particularly harsh before leaving, criticizing everything from her appearance to her inability to brew proper tea. "You're becoming lazy," he'd said. "Perhaps I should send you back to your parents so you remember how fortunate you are here." Rahul found Mira crying in the kitchen, scrubbing a pan that was already spotless. Without hesitation, he took the pan from her hands and guided her to the sofa. For the first time in years, someone held her while she cried. They talked until sunrise about dreams, disappointments, and the terrible loneliness of feeling imprisoned in your own existence. The next evening, he returned with her favorite dessert and a collection of Hindi poetry. They sat on the floor reading verses aloud and laughing at silly films on television. For 4 magical days, Mira remembered what happiness felt like. On the final night, as they sat watching the city lights shimmer through the massive windows, Rahul turned to her and said softly, "You deserve to be loved, Mira. Truly loved, not just tolerated." The kiss happened as naturally as breathing. Gentle, tentative, filled with months of suppressed emotion. When they separated, Mira's eyes filled with tears. But for the first time in years, they weren't tears of pain. "I've loved you for months," Rahul whispered, his forehead touching hers. "I know this is wrong. I know it's complicated, but I can't pretend anymore. They talked until sunrise about their feelings, their guilt, their impossible situation. Both knew they were standing at the edge of a precipice, but neither could step back. Mira felt alive for the first time since her wedding day, and that feeling seemed worth any risk. The secret affair that began that night would ultimately lead to a parking garage in Abu Dhabi, to blood on concrete, to a murder trial that would shock an entire community. The secret affair developed with elaborate precautions that felt thrilling to Mira. They created a system of code words for phone conversations. Meeting for coffee meant his apartment. Running errands meant they needed to talk urgently. Checking mail meant danger, someone was watching. Rahul would park his silver sedan in different locations around the Marina district. Sometimes at the shopping center, sometimes near the beach promenade, never the same spot twice. They used messaging apps with automatic deletion, sending texts that would vanish within minutes of being read. When Kamal left for his business trips, usually announced only a day in advance, Mira would wait exactly 2 hours before texting Rahul a simple message. Meeting for coffee today. Within 30 minutes, she would be in his apartment in Lake Towers, a modern building filled with young professionals where no one paid attention to visitors. March 2015 marked the night their relationship became physical. Kamal was in Bangalore for a week-long client conference, and Mira found herself standing in Rahul's bedroom, trembling not from fear but anticipation. When they made love for the first time, it was transformative. Rahul was patient, gentle, asking if she was comfortable, whispering how beautiful she was. For the first time in her marriage, Mira understood the difference between mechanical obligation and genuine intimacy. I never knew it could feel like this, she whispered against his chest afterward, tears streaming down her face. I thought this was just something women had to endure. They would spend entire afternoons discussing dreams they'd never shared with anyone else. Rahul told her about his ex-wife who'd left him for someone wealthier, about his loneliness in Delhi, about moving to Abu Dhabi hoping to start fresh. Mira spoke about her teaching dreams, her love for poetry, her fantasy of someday writing children's books in Hindi. 4 hours they would lie together, planning impossible futures where they could be together openly. The change in Mira was gradual but unmistakable. She started caring for herself differently, buying new clothes during weekly shopping trips with Kamal, watching makeup tutorials online. In August 2015, she secretly enrolled in an online literature course, spending her mornings studying while Kamal was at work. For the first time in years, she had something to anticipate beyond her weekly phone call home. Her confidence grew with each passing week. During social gatherings with Kamal's colleagues, she began expressing opinions about films and books instead of sitting in silence. When Mrs. Nair from the 17th floor complimented her glowing appearance, Mira actually smiled and thanked her instead of mumbling awkwardly. Even Elena, the housekeeper, noticed. "Madam looking very happy these days," she observed in broken English. Kamal attributed her improved mood to finally adjusting to Abu Dhabi life. "See, I told you it would just take time," he said smugly when neighbors commented on how much more confident Mira seemed. But love made them careless. And Kamal Malhotra was not a careless man. In May 2015, Kamal returned from what was supposed to be a 3-day trip to Mumbai after just 1 day, claiming his meetings had been cancelled. Rahul was in their apartment when Mira received Kamal's text saying he was in the elevator. Panic. Rahul grabbed his shoes and shirt, escaping through the service elevator while Mira frantically sprayed air freshener and scattered cooking ingredients around the kitchen to explain her flustered appearance. "What's that smell?" Kamal asked when he entered. "I was cooking," Mira replied, her heart pounding so violently she was certain he could hear it. The stove was on for a while. They realized that night how dangerous their situation had become, but neither could bear the thought of ending it. Instead they became more cautious, more creative. Rahul would arrive after dark and leave before dawn. They invested in a small speaker that Mira would play loudly to mask any sounds of conversation. By August 2015, Kamal's observant eyes began catching details that triggered suspicion. Mira hummed while cooking, something she'd never done before. She wore lipstick even when staying home all day. Her phone was always face down on the table, and she would grab it quickly whenever he entered the room. Most revealing, her body language around him had changed completely. She seemed distant, distracted, like her mind was always elsewhere. Kamal began his investigation methodically. He checked their phone bills and noticed her data usage had tripled. He found timestamps of deleted messaging app conversations, though the messages themselves were gone. During casual conversations with building security, he learned that a friend had been visiting occasionally when he was away. The security guard, trying to be helpful, described a man in his 30s with a friendly smile who always brought flowers or books. In September 2015, Kamal announced his decision to upgrade their apartment with a smart home system. It's for security and convenience, he explained, showing Mira the sleek new devices. Motion sensors, smart locks, and what appeared to be smoke detectors but were actually high-definition cameras connected to his phone. I can monitor everything remotely. If there's ever an emergency while I'm traveling, I'll know immediately. From his office, Kamal began watching his wife's secret life unfold. In October, during his lunch break, he logged into the camera feed and saw Mira pacing the living room, laughing into her phone, her entire face animated with joy. She looked like a completely different person. Radiant, alive, beautiful in ways she never appeared around him. That's when Kamal realized his wife wasn't just hiding something from him. She was hiding her true self. By December 2015, Kamal had accumulated months of evidence. He'd recorded phone conversations, photographed a poetry book Rahul had given her with the inscription "For my beautiful poet," and documented every lie she told about her activities. But instead of confronting them immediately, he began planning something far more permanent. The trap was closing. Neither Mira nor Rahul had any idea that their secret sanctuary was about to become their worst nightmare. February 14, 2016 was supposed to be their perfect Valentine's Day. When Kamal announced a last-minute business trip to Mumbai that morning, Mira's heart soared with guilty excitement. Important client emergency, he explained, packing his usual business attire. I'll be back in 3 days. Don't expect calls from me. The meetings will run late into the night. The moment his taxi disappeared from view, Mira was on the phone with Rahul, her voice breathless with anticipation. He's gone. We have 3 whole days. They planned everything. Rahul would bring wine, roses, her favorite Thai food. For once, they could pretend to be a normal couple celebrating Valentine's Day in their own home. What Mira didn't know was that Kamal was watching everything unfold from his laptop screen in a hotel room just 15 minutes away. The hidden cameras captured her transformation the moment he left. She practically danced around the apartment, changing into her prettiest dress, lighting candles, arranging flowers. When Rahul arrived at 7 that evening with red roses and champagne, Kamal watched his wife's face illuminate with genuine joy, an expression he'd never seen directed at him. The cameras recorded everything that night. Their intimate dinner conversation where they discussed moving to Canada together. Rahul promising to support her teaching dreams. Their lovemaking, tender and passionate in ways that made Kamal's blood boil. Most damning of all, he heard Mira whisper, "I wish we could do this every night. I wish I could wake up next to you instead of him." When Kamal returned the next evening, he found Mira humming in the kitchen, her skin glowing, her movements light and graceful. She seemed genuinely happy to see him, kissing his cheek and chatting about her quiet few days. The performance was flawless. But Kamal had seen the truth. "How was your trip?" she asked, serving his favorite curry. "Productive," he replied, watching her carefully. "Very productive indeed." That night, after Mira fell asleep, Kamal sat in his study reviewing the footage frame by frame. He created timestamps, captured screenshots, built a comprehensive file of evidence like a prosecutor preparing for the trial of the century. The affair had been ongoing for almost a year, nearly a quarter of their marriage. Every business trip, every moment of trust, every time he'd praised her improved mood, she'd been laughing at him behind his back. For the next week, Kamal became a different man. He brought Mira flowers, complimented her cooking, even suggested they take a weekend trip to Dubai. His sudden affection confused her. She seemed genuinely pleased but also nervous, as if waiting for something terrible to happen. Kamal found her confusion delicious. She had no idea he was savoring his final days of superiority before destroying her world completely. On March 10th, Kamal invited Rahul for dinner, behaving like the same old friend he'd always been. "It's been too long, brother. Mira makes the best biryani in Abu Dhabi. You must try it again." Throughout the evening, he watched them carefully, noting how they avoided eye contact, how Rahul's compliments to Mira were deliberately casual, how she served him with studied indifference. The performance only confirmed everything he already knew. 3 days later, Kamal announced his next business trip. Bangalore. Big presentation for a potential client. "I'll be gone from tomorrow until the 16th. He made a show of packing, complaining about the workload, promising to call when he could. Mira's excitement was barely contained. He could see her planning her freedom the moment he walked out the door. But the trap was already set. Instead of going to the airport, Kamal checked into a luxury hotel downtown, paying cash for a room with city views. From there, he watched Mira transform back into the woman she became when he wasn't around. She immediately called Rahul, her voice animated and joyful. He's gone for 3 days. Can you come over tonight? Bring that wine you mentioned. That evening, Kamal watched from his hotel room as his childhood friend arrived at his apartment carrying an overnight bag, expensive wine, and enough groceries to cook dinner together. The intimacy of their movements as they prepared the meal, the way they danced to music while cooking, the easy laughter that filled his living room. It all confirmed what he'd already decided. Rahul Khanna had to die. At 2:30 in the morning on March 14th, Kamal used his key to enter the apartment silently. The place carried the scent of wine and Mira's perfume, and he could hear their peaceful breathing from the bedroom. He stood in the doorway watching them sleep. Mira curled against Rahul's chest, both of them unclothed and content. With his phone he took several photographs. Evidence for later. Proof of their betrayal. In the living room, he selected the heavy crystal vase from the dining table. The one Mira's parents had given them as a wedding gift. The irony wasn't lost on him. At exactly 3 in the morning, Rahul woke and walked to the kitchen for water. In the darkness of the living room, Kamal stepped forward. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Rahul froze, the glass tumbling from his hand to shatter on the marble floor. Kamal, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Bangalore. How long? Listen, we need to talk about this. I know how it looks, but please, you destroyed my family. Kamal's composure shattered as he swung the vase with all his strength. Rahul crumpled to the floor, blood immediately pooling beneath his head. But Kamal's rage wasn't finished. He struck again. And again. Years of humiliation and betrayal pouring out with each blow. Mira's screams from the bedroom finally stopped him. She rushed out, saw Rahul's motionless body and fell to her knees beside him. Call an ambulance please, Kamal. Call someone. But it was already too late. At 3:47 in the morning, Rahul Khanna was dead. And Kamal Malhotra was standing over his body, planning how to make his wife pay for her betrayal. In the horrifying silence that followed Rahul's death, Kamal's mind shifted into survival mode. Mira knelt beside Rahul's motionless body, her white nightgown stained with his blood, sobbing uncontrollably. We have to call the police, she whispered. We have to get help. Help. Kamal laughed bitterly, dropping the bloodied crystal vase. He's dead, Mira. And you killed him just as much as I did. What are you talking about? You're the one who... You brought him here. You invited him into our home, into our bed. You think the police will see you as innocent? Kamal's voice was cold, calculating. You're an accomplice to adultery and now you're an accomplice to murder. Mira's face went white as the implications hit her. In her traumatized state, Kamal's twisted logic seemed terrifyingly plausible. But I didn't know you were going to hurt him. I never wanted this. Tell that to the Abu Dhabi police. Tell that to your parents when they see the videos I have of you two together. Kamal pulled out his phone, showing her a screenshot from his surveillance footage. Your father's health problems. How do you think he'll handle seeing his daughter like this? And in India, women who bring shame to their families, well, you know what happens to them. The threat of honor violence hung in the air like poison. Mira had heard the stories, read the news reports. Women harmed by their own families for bringing dishonor to the family name. In her terrified, guilt-ridden state, she couldn't think clearly enough to realize that Kamal was manipulating her. What do we do? She whispered. Kamal's plan was methodical, born from years of systematic thinking. They would move Rahul's body to the parking garage and stage it as a robbery gone wrong. He came to visit, left around midnight. Someone attacked him in the garage while he was going to his car. You were asleep the whole time, heard nothing. At 4 in the morning, they wrapped his body in bedsheets and used the service elevator to avoid the main security cameras. In the underground parking garage, they placed him beside his car, scattered his belongings to suggest a struggle, and took his wallet to mimic a robbery. Kamal then drove to Abu Dhabi International Airport, used his credit card to check in for the Bangalore flight, and called Mira from the gate before quietly leaving and returning to his hotel. At 7 that morning, building security discovered Rahul's body during their morning rounds. The police arrived within minutes, sealing off the parking garage and beginning their investigation. When they knocked on apartment 2804, they found a distraught Mira in her nightgown, claiming she'd been asleep and heard nothing unusual. He left around midnight, she told the officers, her performance convincing in its apparent shock. I was tired, went to bed early. I can't believe someone would hurt him in our building. When police called Kamal in Bangalore, his reaction seemed appropriately devastated. Rahul is dead? How is that possible? I was just with him 2 days ago. He caught the next flight back to Abu Dhabi, playing the grieving friend perfectly. But the investigation quickly revealed inconsistencies in their story. Airport surveillance showed Kamal at the check-in counter but never boarding the flight. Hotel records in Bangalore showed no guest under his name. Most damning, forensic examination of their apartment revealed traces of blood that couldn't be completely cleaned, and neighbors reported hearing arguments and screams around 3 in the morning. The breakthrough came when police obtained a warrant to search Kamal's electronics. On his laptop, they discovered months of surveillance footage showing Mira and Rahul's affair in explicit detail. The recordings proved not only motive, but premeditation. Kamal had been planning his revenge for weeks. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Mira finally broke down and confessed to the cover-up. "He told me I was equally guilty," she sobbed to investigators. "He said they would deport me, that my family would hurt me for the shame. I was so scared I couldn't think straight." The trial that followed consumed Abu Dhabi's Indian expatriate community. Kamal was charged with first-degree murder while Mira faced charges as an accessory after the fact. His defense team argued crime of passion, claiming temporary insanity upon discovering his wife's betrayal. But the prosecution's evidence of surveillance, planning, and calculated manipulation painted a picture of cold-blooded premeditation. Mira's testimony against her husband was devastating. She described years of control, isolation, and emotional abuse, explaining how her desperate search for affection had led to the affair. "I never wanted anyone to die," she said from the witness stand. "I just wanted to feel human again." The sentences reflected the complexity of the case. Kamal received life imprisonment for first-degree murder while Mira was sentenced to 10 years as an accessory. Both faced deportation proceedings following their sentences. But Mira's family had already disowned her, refusing to accept her back to India. The case became a cautionary tale that echoed through expatriate communities across the Gulf. It highlighted the hidden abuse within seemingly successful marriages and the dangerous consequences of loveless arrangements. After serving 7 years, Mira was released for good behavior and quietly relocated to Canada, where she now works with domestic abuse victims, helping other women escape the cycles of control and violence. Kamal remains in Abu Dhabi Central Prison, his appeals denied, his reputation destroyed. What began as a young woman's desperate search for love had ended in tragedy, destroying 3 lives and serving as a stark reminder of the deadly price of jealousy, control, and the lengths people will go to preserve their sense of ownership over another human being. The surveillance footage that condemned them both was eventually destroyed. But the lessons of their story continue to echo in conversations about arranged marriages, expatriate isolation, and the fundamental human need for genuine love and respect. This has been Crime Canvas. If this story moved you or made you think, please subscribe to our channel. Your support encourages us to keep creating thoughtful, well-researched content that sheds light on important issues. Thank you for watching.